What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Inside the Horseshoe. My name is Matt, and I figured, assuming that the reports of Carson Wentz being traded or cut are true, I don't know if they are or not, but let's assume that they are true. I figured I would talk about some quarterbacks, and I would tell you whether I think there's a chance that they're going to end up in Indianapolis or there's no chance that they end up in Indianapolis. I have a group of quarterbacks we'll talk about today. We'll get into it in just a second, but before I do that, if you're new or if you haven't already, I would greatly appreciate if you would click that subscribe button. Also, click the bell icon. That way you're notified of whenever I upload a video or when I go live. If you like this video, smack the like button. Let me know your thoughts down below. Do you agree with me or do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comments. And if you have a Twitter, make sure you follow me on Twitter at horseshoe_pod. There's a link in the description down below. So, as we all know, there's a bunch of reports going out right now saying that Carson Wentz will be traded or cut. This, of course, is coming from Chris Mortensen. A bunch of people are now reporting on it. There's people thinking that it's true. I still don't know. But I figured we'll talk about some quarterbacks. There's some names that people keep bringing up and some names that nobody's really bringing up at all. And I would tell you whether I think there's a chance that they end up in Indianapolis or not. So we're going to start off with the quarterbacks that could be traded to Indianapolis. Then we'll get into the free agents. And the first one I want to start off with is Aaron Rodgers. This is the one. We won't know about any of these quarterbacks, assuming that they're going to move, until Aaron Rodgers is dealt with. Whether he stays in Green Bay, he goes to another team, or retires. So for me, talking about Aaron Rodgers, there was a time where I thought that it was going to happen. It just felt right. I just felt like there was a really good chance Aaron Rodgers was going to end up in Indianapolis. However, lately, I don't get that feeling at all. I get the feeling that Aaron Rodgers is happy in Green Bay. It doesn't seem like he wants to play for another team. It seems like he would be fine playing for the Packers for another season. So for me personally, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to be the Indianapolis Colts quarterback because I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to leave Green Bay. If he does, in fact, leave Green Bay and he's not going to play for the Packers next year, I think that's because he retires. Next, let's talk about Russell Wilson. This is the name a lot of Colts fans are going nuts for. They want Russell Wilson, and I don't blame you guys. Russell Wilson, very, very good quarterback. One of the better quarterbacks in the entire NFL. Is he top 5? No, I don't think so, but he's definitely top 10, in my opinion. I don't think he's going to end up in Indianapolis. I say this because I think he stays in Seattle. Last year, we saw all these reports coming out that he wants to leave and he wants to go to another team. He still stayed in Seattle. So all these rumors keep coming up about Russell Wilson wanting to look at different teams and wanting to play for a different team. He's not going to end up in Indianapolis. I think he stays in Seattle, in my opinion. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Denver goes after him and gets him. Maybe Pittsburgh gets him. I don't know. We'll find out, of course. But I think he's going to stay in Seattle. And also, why would he want to go to Indianapolis? Yeah, better offensive line, for sure. Not as good weapons. He won't have a duo like Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf in Indianapolis. And I say that because if we were able to bring in Russell Wilson, we couldn't afford to bring in like a high-level receiver. So for me personally, I just don't see it happening. I would love it to happen personally, but I don't see him ending up in Indianapolis. I think he stays in Seattle. Next, Derek Carr. I would love Derek Carr. I really, really do like Derek Carr. I think he's very underrated. I think Derek Carr in Indianapolis would be a lot of fun to watch. Wouldn't be expensive. We can get him for a good price. You know, he's cheaper than Carson Wentz. So I like the idea of Derek Carr in Indianapolis. He's not going to Indy. He's staying in Las Vegas. There's reports coming out that an extension is going to be done and Derek Carr will remain a Raider. Josh McDaniels apparently loves Derek Carr. So I think with all that, it just says to me that he's going to stay in Vegas. Now, if there was a head coach that wasn't as big on Derek Carr as Josh McDaniels is, maybe he becomes available. but I just don't see it happening at all. He's in his early 30s. He's still very talented. He had nearly 5,000 passing yards this past season. He's a very good quarterback. I think he stays with the Raiders. He's not going to end up in Indianapolis. Next person I'm going to talk about today, this is a name I don't really see being brought up a whole lot. I saw maybe one or two people bring up this name, Matt Ryan. I love Matt Ryan. I really do. I think Matt Ryan would be really good in Indianapolis. I think Matt Ryan is a very good quarterback. It's just he's on a Falcons team that's not good. Yeah, he's had some weapons, sure, and he puts up good numbers, but the defense is not good at all. There was that one year where the defense was really good, but that was about it. I don't see him going to Indianapolis. I think it's definitely a higher chance of happening than, say, Rodgers or Wilson or Carr. I think he's going to stay in Atlanta at least until his contract is up. The only way he would end up in Indianapolis is, for one, if Atlanta is ready to go full-on rebuild, or the other way would be if Matt Ryan is willing to reconstruct his deal, making it more affordable for a team like Indianapolis. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he stays in Atlanta for another year, maybe two. I would love him on this team. I think he's quite good. I think he would be really good for us, but I don't see him being on this team at all. Next quarterback I'm going to talk about, Kirk Cousins. Minnesota has a new front office, new GM, I believe. Maybe, and they're going to have a new head coach. Maybe they want to move on from Kirk Cousins. So could Kirk Cousins be available? And if available, would he go to Indianapolis? Again, contract, not pretty. He would have to reconstruct his, contract in order to end up in Indianapolis. I like to joke about Kirk Cousins. I like to say he's terrible. I don't think he's terrible. He's a good quarterback. He's a top 15 for sure in the league. I don't think he's top 10. And I think he would be pretty good in Indianapolis. I would not be opposed to him being in Indianapolis. I don't see it happening. I think the Vikings, their current front office and head coach, I think they're more than comfortable, sticking with Kirk Cousins. Now, do I think Kirk Cousins is going to take them to a Super Bowl? I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe this new head coach will have a new system put in place and he'll look better and the whole team will look better because it's a very talented team. Justin Jefferson, you have Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, very good weapons for any quarterback. Defense needs a little work, but I think they can get that fixed pretty quick. Kirk Cousins, I don't see him leaving. I think he stays a Viking as well. So, no, I don't see Kirk Cousins going to Indianapolis. Wouldn't be opposed to it. I just don't think it's going to happen. Okay, so now we're going to talk about free agent quarterbacks that could potentially be an option for the Indianapolis Colts. The first one we're going to talk about today is a guy that could be traded for, but the only way Chris Ballard would consider bringing him to Indianapolis is if he is cut by his former team, and that is Jimmy Garoppolo. I say this because there is no way Chris Ballard is going to take on that contract, especially with some of the issues we have on this team. Now, if he reconstructs his deal and it's more team-friendly, maybe, but I think there's a better chance that he's a free agent than his contract being reconstructed. I definitely think there's a chance he could end up in Indianapolis. Record is good as a starting quarterback, although it does help to have guys like George Kittle and Deebo Samuel to throw to. That definitely does help a lot if you're a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo. And Jimmy Garoppolo is definitely more consistent than Carson Wentz. I wouldn't be for it because I don't see him as a big upgrade. I think it's pretty much the same. I think Carson Wentz is pretty much the same as Jimmy Garoppolo. I think Carson Wentz has a higher ceiling than Jimmy Garoppolo. Just me personally. It's just, can Carson Wentz get out of that funk that he's in right now, where he's making really dumb mistakes when a play is just done. I don't want Jimmy Garoppolo, personally, but I do think there's a chance that it's going to happen. So, yeah, if he's a free agent, there is definitely a chance that Jimmy Garoppolo will end up being on the Colts. All right, so now let's talk about Teddy Bridgewater. So Teddy Bridgewater is a guy I think Colts fans would definitely be for. I think they would be totally fine with Teddy being the Indianapolis Colts quarterback, depending on what other moves are made in the offseason. Teddy Bridgewater in the right system can be very effective. We saw what he did when he was in New Orleans. Played really, really good. Led him to 5-0 when he started. So did good things there. Goes to Carolina. Really doesn't do a whole lot in Carolina. Doesn't really look like the guy for the Panthers. Then he goes to Denver, a team that a lot of people say is a quarterback away from competing for a Super Bowl. They got the defense. They got the weapons. They got the run game. A good offensive line. Teddy Bridgewater, who we all are very confident in, goes there, and things don't really work out after 1 year to the point where he's going to be a free agent. Now, it could be coaching. It could be the wrong system for Teddy Bridgewater. It didn't really work out. I don't think he was bad, but it didn't work out the way I think a lot of people thought it was going to work out. So now he's a free agent, and I definitely think it's possible. I think, depending on what happens, if we don't get Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, as far as free agents go, I think Teddy would be number one on Chris Ballard's list. That's just my guess. I think he would be good in Indianapolis. Don't know how good, but I think it could definitely work out. So, yeah, I think there's a chance Teddy Bridgewater ends up in Indianapolis. Let's talk about Mitch Trubisky next, shall we? I like Mitch. I think in the right system, Mitch can be very good. He was in Chicago. I don't think Chicago was a good place for him. To be fair, there's a lot of quarterbacks where Chicago's not a good place for them because of Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy, I don't think, was a great head coach for a young quarterback. Mitch had that one really good year during Matt Nagy's first year. Got them to the playoffs. Led them down the field to win the game against the Eagles, but then there was the doink that happened. Things don't really go great in Chicago from there. Goes to Buffalo, and now he's going to be a free agent. I wouldn't be opposed to Mitch being on this team, but if I'm going to be honest, I don't see him going to Indy. I don't think Chris Ballard is going to go after Mitch Trubisky, but I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think in the right system, he could be very good. I just don't see him going to Indianapolis. And the next guy we're going to talk about today is Tyrod Taylor. Now, I really, really like Tyrod Taylor. He is the unluckiest quarterback in the NFL right now. Super, super, super unlucky. He's in Buffalo, leads them to their first playoff appearance in, I believe, 19 years. Does really well in Buffalo. Gets shipped off to Cleveland. Doesn't work out in Cleveland. Gets his job taken from him and given to Baker Mayfield. He then goes off to the Chargers. Has a punctured lung because of a doctor. Justin Herbert takes over, lights the world on fire. Then he goes to Houston, and he looks good at first, but things don't really end up being the best for him. Davis Mills takes over and is now going to be their quarterback from here on out. And I like Davis, but, I think Tyrod's probably a little bit better. So now Tyrod's going to be a free agent. Again, would not be opposed to Tyrod. I think Tyrod would be a stopgap quarterback. He'd be a guy you would keep for a year, and if he works out, great. He's your quarterback for the next however many years. And if he doesn't really work out, then you draft a quarterback in 2023. That's kind of how I view the whole situation with Tyrod Taylor if he was to go to Indianapolis. Again, I don't see Chris Ballard going after Tyrod. I think Tyrod could work, but don't know if it would work. Wouldn't be opposed to it, but definitely not my number one choice if we were to go after a quarterback in free agency. So I'm going to go no for Tyrod. I don't really see him ending up in Indianapolis, although, again, wouldn't be opposed to it. Now let's talk about the next quarterback. And the next quarterback we're going to talk about today is Marcus Mariota. Obviously, we have a lot of experience against Marcus Mariota. Was a Tennessee Titan. His problem in Tennessee was he was inconsistent. There were games where he would look great. He would look awesome. And then there's games where he would not look good. So he's very inconsistent. In my opinion, I don't like it. I don't like the potential of Marcus Mariota in Indianapolis. I just don't see him as a fit. Has all the potential in the world. I think Carson Wentz is much better than Marcus Mariota, in my opinion. And I don't think Chris Ballard is also interested in Marcus Mariota. I just don't see that happening at all. So for me personally, no to Marcus Mariota. I don't see Chris Ballard going after him, and I definitely would not feel confident if we did get him as our starting quarterback. Now, the last quarterback we're going to talk about today is Mr. Fitzmagic himself, Ryan Fitzpatrick. I like Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick, as his career has progressed, he's been getting better and better. The last couple of years, he's played much better. I don't think he's great. He's definitely a stopgap quarterback. But, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, he definitely has improved. There's no way Chris Ballard brings Ryan Fitzpatrick to Indianapolis. I wouldn't hate it, personally, but I wouldn't love it. You know, I think for the memes, it'd be great to have some Fitzmagic. I just don't see it happening. And I don't think I would want it. He's definitely not at the bottom of my list. I definitely wouldn't preferably want Ryan Fitzpatrick, though. And one quarterback that actually just popped up in my head that I think would be quite interesting to talk about is Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton in Cincinnati played pretty well, you know, got him to the playoffs, looked good. He wasn't a bad quarterback, played quite well. Now, obviously, as his time in Cincinnati was coming to an end, didn't really work out. He didn't look all that great, gets released, and then is picked up by Chicago. So, doesn't really do much in Chicago at all. Doesn't really look all that great. Ends up getting his job taken from him by Justin Fields, and he's going to be a free agent. This is interesting. I definitely wouldn't hate it. It fascinates me to think, what would this team look like with a guy like Andy Dalton? I'm not 100% for it, but I'm not 100% against it. I would be fine with this move. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'd be fine with it. You know, wouldn't be the worst move to happen. You know, he's definitely better than some of the other options that are going to be available. But in my opinion, I don't think it's going to happen, but it is fascinating to think about what this team would look like with an Andy Dalton. Because if he can get back to what he was early on in his career, I think this team could do some good things. So there you guys have it. There's all the quarterbacks I talked about. Those are all the quarterbacks I think are potentially going to be available for the Indianapolis Colts, assuming they do move on from Carson Wentz. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you're new or if you haven't already, I would greatly appreciate if you click that subscribe button. Also click the bell icon. That way you're notified whenever I upload a video or when I go live. If you like this video, smack the like button. Let me know your thoughts down below. Who do you think would be a good fit for Indianapolis, assuming that Carson Wentz is not going to be the quarterback next year? And also, if you have a Twitter, make sure you follow me on Twitter at horseshoe_pod. There's a link in the description down below. So thank you very much for watching. I've been Matt, Bleed Blue. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you like it, make sure you watch one of these other two videos. They're cool. Also, if you're new, please click the subscribe button as well as the bell icon. I greatly appreciate your support.